On an area of Springfield that is often really hidden away, we're talking about the care of children with severe developmental disabilities at the Hope Institute. Care that has not recently met state government standards.
News Channel 20's Brendan Collerton joins us with his investigation into what's been going on at the Hope Institute.
Hope is a statewide organization that provides both teaching and, on its Springfield campus, residential care to children with developmental disabilities like autism. When the Department of Child and Family Services placed an admissions ban on Hope in June, its second in 3 years, we looked closer at what has been going on, and we found several violations that the organization itself deemed unacceptable. Big changes are already underway. Despite an ongoing DCFS investigation into a serious injury to a child, Hope Director Clint Paul says the organization has done a good job with a difficult task.
Absolutely. We have done 100% a great job at providing what our mission is to the clients of the Hope Institute and their families.
That mission: provide independence, growth, and joy to children with disabilities. But DCFS reports obtained by News Channel 20 show state investigations confirming violations, including dragging a child across the floor. Paul said no physical altercations like that are acceptable in any situation. Other incidents at the not-for-profit include an unsupervised child getting into a closet and giving himself chemical burns on his face, arms, and legs. But instead of treating the child, the staff member put them in a room and blocked the doorway with a chair. What I found kind of alarming from that one was, the fact that they got the chemical burns was bad, but the fact that the staff member, instead of treating it, kind of blocked them away. He says incidents like that are uncommon and unacceptable.
The process, I can go back to the processes as we report these. The agency does their investigation, and we support that fully. And if the employee has violated policy that causes injury, we will take swift action.
The employees involved in both of those violations were terminated. There were several other violations, like leaving a child with the functional age of 2 unsupervised in a bathtub for 20 minutes, and a child biting another so hard it required medical attention and left scars. Paul says one of the problems is not having enough money for staffing when many of the children they serve need near constant attention.
Resources we're left with makes it challenging for us to serve some of the most difficult youth in the state of Illinois.
Paul says all mandated child-to-staff ratios are being met, but they need to use a lot of overtime to fill those hours, which drains the staff's energy.
Having to work even extra is tough for them mentally, physically. We just right now are having trouble getting enough staff through the door just based on what our starting pay is.
Stephanie Collins used to work for Hope as a supervisor, but she quit last summer and says work conditions were a big reason.
Some people are working 16 hours a day, 4 to 5 times a week, so you can add those numbers up, and that's a lot. That's a lot of time away from family. That's a lot of time to be in the building. That's a lot of time to be just in that environment.
She says long work weeks end up causing neglect towards the children.
The children didn't deserve that. You know, you lose so much, and you lose quality, you lose, oh, wow. I mean, they deserve pretty much the best staff they can get, and they're not getting that. They're getting watered down, tired, exhausted, don't want to be there staff.
Hope says Illinois grants pay $15 million of your tax dollars for its nearly $40 million yearly budget. But Paul says funding has remained stagnant for a while.
Currently, our model that's being funded hasn't changed in 10 years. We haven't had a rate increase in over a decade.
Hope tells us their child care has been improving. Self-reported data shows a decline in youth injuries and unknown injuries between January and April. Those numbers are from a pool of about 150 kids that either live on Hope's main campus or go to school there. Paul says they've worked hard to address injuries ever since the state put the organization on a corrective action plan after instances of abuse in 2013.
That was one of the biggest concerns 2 years ago when a lot of this had started with the agencies, and rightfully so. So we've worked with our staff through this corrective action plan to put many policies, procedures, new software in place, additional oversight, additional training.
One of the biggest changes has been extensive reporting of every youth injury, even simple scratches. Collins says that's an improvement from her time at Hope.
I think it's a start. I mean, if they're reporting it, that lets at least DCFS know that they are acknowledging that there's some things going on. So I believe it should help.
Despite improvements, an incident in June drew scrutiny from the state. It looked like the state was ready to take you off the corrective action plan. What happened in June that put the admissions ban back?
You know, we had an incident in June of a significant injury, unknown origin, which, heightens our scrutiny and as well as the state's.
Because the investigation is ongoing, DCFS says they are unable to release more details on the incident. As far as changing the system to better serve the kids, Hope says the biggest one is something they've already been working on under the radar. Hope says in 2 years, the federal government will stop reimbursing states for grants given to organizations that isolate children from the rest of society. So Hope is restructuring.
The change in the federal funding and change in best practice is to move children in the community in smaller environments, in the homes like you and I live in. And that's where they belong, and that's what they deserve, and that's what Hope is moving towards in the next 12 months, is to be all community-based housing.
Paul says that means some of the most difficult children, including some of the 30 that still live on Hope's main campus, will no longer be in their care to begin with. Paul says he can't guarantee the new model will drastically reduce injuries to kids.
Well, as we make this transition, our census will drop. I can't say that we wouldn't have any incidences going forward, but our goal is to continue to work as hard as we can to provide a safe safe learning environment for our youth.
Hope is still under the admissions ban placed on it months ago, but it will be taking in less children regardless due to its new model. Collins says the community model is better for kids.
Their attitudes, some of them changed overnight just because you feel like you're at home and you feel like you're more in a family environment than versus being on an institution feeling. So I think that is great.
She added the community-based model, which is already used by Hope for a lot of kids, makes the children less aggressive because of its relaxed feel.
So as you just heard, Hope will have less children in their care with the newer federally supported model. Brendan, will this strategy be better for children?
Well, Paul says there are a few major benefits to that community-based housing. One is allowing those with disabilities to live just like everyone else in a home instead of the old-school dormitory setting that was far more common in the 60s. Community homes have single bedrooms, a kitchen, and the goal is to transition kids with disabilities into the adult world. Paul also says there will be fewer children in one area, which means more staff per child and less chance of injuries.
Okay, Brendan, any drawbacks to this new approach?
Well, the big one, what Paul tells me, is those kids with the most severe disabilities, they just can't function in that type of a setting.
Okay, so what will happen to those children?
Well, Paul says that's not entirely clear. The options for those children are kind of limited. They can enter adult placement earlier in state facilities in life, or their parents might even have to send them out of state in those facilities. We reached out to the Department of Child and Family Services to talk on camera about some of these violations, how they handle and prevent them. They declined that request.
Okay, thank you, Brendan, for that.